I can guarantee you that any city in the country would be thrilled to have someone like Paul Dorpat. We spent really a lifetime documenting the city and collecting material that really reveals sort of the fabric of our city's life. No, I don't think there's other cities that have a Paul Dorpat.
Ann Ferguson has known historian Paul Dorpat for a long time. She's curator of the Seattle Collection, thousands of books, photos, maps, and documents that tell Seattle's many stories and which are preserved and made accessible to researchers, like Paul, in the Seattle Room at the Central Library. Dorpat recently donated his collection of Seattle history materials, photos and books and notes from his years of Seattle Times columns to the library.
I got to go down to his office on the lower level of his house, and I could not stop looking around because every square inch of that space was full of Seattle history, essentially.
And now all that history is at the Central Library, where a lot of work lies ahead to process it, and where Andrew Harbison is the Assistant Director of Collections and Access.
Paul Dorpat is an incredibly important figure in Seattle history. He was a writer for the Seattle Times, published over 1,500 articles of the Seattle Now and Then column, co-founder of the History Link website, which documents a lot of important history in Seattle and the region, and a voluminous collector as well, as you can see among all of these boxes here. These are some of the Helix publications, the underground newspaper that Paul published and was the founder of. And here is just a small sampling of the notes that Paul took to write his over 1,500 Seattle Now and Then columns.
The stuff inside those boxes will eventually make its way to the Seattle Room, one of the most remarkable spaces inside one of the city's most remarkable buildings.
Ultimately, some of the material will be here in the Seattle Room for the public to access.
And what's already in the Seattle Room?
Many different examples of historic documents and photographs here.
All things Seattle history have a home on the shelves. You could almost imagine Paul Dorpat himself living here.
More important local books covering Seattle and the region, and then also some really amazing maps that we have.
But where is that tremendous cultural figure and voluminous collector these days? Paul Dorpat, who's in his 80s, recently moved to a senior living facility in his beloved downtown Seattle. Because of the pandemic, we have to interview him from the landing across from his window.
I felt that the Seattle Room, get that, the Seattle Room at the Seattle Public Library was a wonderful place to abscond with it.
And maybe it's a dumb question, but why is Seattle history so important to Paul Dorpat?
Well, I live in the place. I've always been interested in history, and it gives you a depth of the experience of the thing you're studying, to study it, you know, and that's what truth is a hard study on stuff, so I want to know the truth.
And what about Ann Ferguson's belief that very few cities have someone like Paul?
I think that she's right, that there aren't many people nationwide who have given themselves obsessively to 40 years of study of their local history, especially from the illustrative side of it all.
My experience of this presence of the city is really deepened by my knowledge of its past.
He's got this perfect combination of, as I said, doing real scholarly research, but being able to pull back and get this higher level view that pulls out for sort of the general public. What's really engaging, interesting, intriguing will pull people in and get them to appreciate the history of their city.
It seems that while Paul Dorpat's collection of photographs and books and ephemera may be priceless, it's Paul Dorpat himself who's the real Seattle treasure. And he could use your help, once the pandemic is over, getting the collection organized.
And I hope to inspire people to come and volunteer and work with me and others in putting it together, exploring it. There's a lot of exploring to do.
And who better to explore it with than Paul Dorpat?